Question. There are no non-believers amongst the great multitude described Revelation chapter 7 verse 9. Do you agree or disagree? Answer. Revelation 7 verse 9 says, After this I looked, and there before me was a great multitude that no one could count, from every nation, tribe, people, and language, standing before the throne and before the Lamb. They were wearing white robes and were holding palm branches in their hands. New International Version. I truly believe in my heart of hearts that there will be non-believers in that crowd. If I believed otherwise, I don't really believe in the sovereignty of God. There, I said it. I know it's pungent, I know it's punchy, but there's really no other way to say it. If you are going to sit here and dictate to God who he can and cannot save, you are taking the role of God. You are saying, in effect, I know the Bible so well that I can second-guess God. That's a dangerous proposition because we're talking about the creator of the universe. We're talking about the sustainer of everything that exists. No one can be presumptuous enough to say, I know God's mind. As the prophet Isaiah says, his ways are not our ways, his mind is not our mind. That's the bottom line. He can hand out salvation however he wishes because that's his prerogative. That is his right as the creator and sustainer of everything. One good passage from the Bible that really cements this is the parable of the vineyard workers. This can be found in Matthew 20, verse 1 to 16. There was an owner of a vineyard, and he needed workers to help with the harvest. So first thing in the morning, he goes to the marketplace and hires people. But after a few hours pass, he quickly realizes that he still needs more labor, so he does it again, gets more people, and he is still short. And he keeps doing this until a short time before quitting time. The people he hired first saw the latest batch of people that the master hired, and they're thinking in their hearts, okay, since he hired us first and he hired these people just an hour or so before quitting time, he probably would pay us more. They're well within their rights to think that because that's how the human mind works. It's only fair, right? It makes all the sense in the world. But what happened? They saw that the master paid the newly arrived people a certain amount of money, and the people who were hired first got all excited because if he is paying them that much, he would pay them so much more. But how did things turn out? That's right. Everybody, regardless of when they got hired, got paid the same. Of course, the master represents God. Did God somehow forget to count? Is God unfair? But what was God's answer to the people who were not happy that he paid the late arrivals the same wage as the first ones on the field? You have to understand that the first ones on the field put in a lot more work. They were tired. The sun beat down on them for much longer. But there they are with the same amount of pay. The owner said, Don't have I the right to handle my property however I wish? Didn't I give you what I promised you? Similarly, Jesus told the parable of wedding feast where a king invited certain people to celebrate the wedding of the king's son. The invitees found all sorts of reasons not to attend. Some of the invitees even beat or killed some of the king's messengers. Fed up, the king sent his army and they destroyed the city of the invitees. The king then told his servants to invite everyone they could find, both bad and good, to the king's banquet. Every invitee was to wear the special garment the king gave them. When the king saw one guest wearing different clothing, he had the guest thrown out of the wedding. The king represents God in this parable. The wedding garment in this story highlights God's sovereignty. If we are to be included in his kingdom, we are to respect his rules and his will. But compliance with his rules are also gifts from him. In this story, he gave all guests the clothing they needed. But the guest who was thrown out decided to wear what he wanted instead of what the king wanted. In short, we are all living in God's creation, and at the end it is his will that prevails. He and he alone makes the final call on who gets into heaven. We have to keep these lessons in mind when it comes to thinking of who makes it to heaven and who doesn't. Let's be honest. None of us deserve to go to heaven. Romans 3 verse 23 is clear. All have fallen short of the glory of God. We are all sinners. We're all going to die. We all deserve the death penalty. That's what we all have in common. It doesn't matter what religion we are. It doesn't matter how much education we have. It doesn't matter how much money we have. At the end of the day, we're all going to die and we are going to be judged. Sin is what unites us. This is why it's really important to focus on the grace of the vineyard owner. It is only through God's grace which we access by faith in Jesus Christ that we are saved. It definitely doesn't depend on how good we are or how righteous our actions have been. So instead of obsessing about who will get saved or not, focus on your relationship with Jesus Christ. Open that door when he knocks on your heart. Tell him, I will go, when he asks you to take a bold step forward in your life. That bold step forward may take the form of forgiving. It may take the form of spreading the word, speaking boldly or acting boldly or giving boldly. Whatever the case may be, take Jesus' hand tight because whatever it is that you have now, it will be nothing in comparison to where he is taking you. You can trust him. And of course, this requires surrender. Unfortunately, this is the main sticking point for a lot of people. This is why they compartmentalize Jesus. They say, I'm a Christian, but I am this type of Christian, meaning you put all sorts of rules and boundaries on Jesus. A lot of people have this idea that when you become a Christian, Christianity puts a lot of rules around you. No, it's the other way around. That's how people cope with being Christian. They try to be Christian on their own terms. Jesus doesn't want that. Do you know what Jesus wants? Well, it can be summarized in the title of Christian author E.A. Cruz's book. Jesus says, go kill yourself. In other words, Jesus is saying, take up your cross. Now you may be thinking, okay, that's a nice poetic phrase. But taking up your cross means dying to your old self. A cross, after all, is an execution device. It was the electric chair of those days, the instrument that was used to kill Jesus. Well, Jesus says, take up your cross. Let your old self die with all its hurts, its insecurities, and sense of inadequacy. Let it go and grab hold of him because he has something better for you. And when you do this, you obsess less about who makes it to heaven or not. Instead, you just savor your relationship with Jesus. You fall in love with him because he loved you first. Just as he died so you can live again, by trusting in him, you are reborn, and the Holy Spirit makes your body its temple. It is only through the Spirit living in you that are able to keep God's law and do what he desires. This is how you are able to love despite people not loving you back. This is how you're able to give when it seems that the rest of the world just wants to take and take. You're not doing it for them. The old you has passed away. Instead, your ego is wrapped solidly around Jesus. This is how your life will bear the fruit of the Spirit. Imagine the joy that cannot be taken away, the love that doesn't depend on being loved back, and so on and so forth. Claim Jesus today. He is the answer.